My name is Martha Ellison. I am 60 years old, and this is the story I never thought I would survive telling. For a long time, I believed silence was strength. I believed that if I stayed quiet, if I endured, if I loved harder, things would eventually soften. I was wrong. Silence does not always protect. Sometimes it slowly buries you alive. The night everything broke was my son Daniel's wedding reception. White roses, crystal glasses, soft jazz floating through a ballroom that smelled like money and lies. I stood near the edge of the room in a simple navy dress I had sewn myself, watching my only child laugh with people who barely knew him. People who never saw the nights he cried in my arms after his father left. People who never saw me scrub floors at dawn and stitch uniforms at midnight so he could have books, shoes, a future. And then it happened. Daniel's mother-in-law, Margaret Hale, walked toward me with a smile that felt rehearsed. She held a bowl of hot soup meant for the head table. She stopped in front of me, looked me directly in the eyes, and without raising her voice said, "Some women should know when they are no longer needed." Before I could even process the words, she tilted the bowl. The heat hit my face first, then my chest. Thick broth soaked my dress, burned my skin, and dripped onto the marble floor. Gasps filled the room. Someone screamed, but no one moved. I stood frozen, soup sliding down my neck, my ears ringing. And then my son spoke. "She's right, Mom." I did not scream. I did not cry. I did not ask why. I wiped my face with a linen napkin, straightened my back, and walked out of that ballroom with what dignity I had left. But before I left the building, I made a phone call. I said 3 words, "It's time now." And that call would change everything. To understand why I did what I did next, you need to know who I was before that night. I raised Daniel alone after his father disappeared when Daniel was 4. No goodbye, no explanation, just absence. I worked as a hospital cleaner during the day and repaired clothing at night. My hands were always cracked. My back always hurt. But my son never went hungry. Daniel was gentle as a boy, smart, kind. He used to sit on the kitchen counter while I cooked and tell me I was his hero. When he got into university, I cried for 3 days. I sold my wedding ring to help pay his first semester. He promised he would never forget me. Then he met Isabel, beautiful, polished, raised in privilege, and behind her stood Margaret, a woman who had never worked a day in her life but knew exactly how to make others feel small. From the beginning, Margaret looked at me like a stain on white fabric. She spoke slowly to me, as if I were uneducated. She called me dear instead of my name. She corrected my posture, my manners, my clothes, and Daniel said nothing. Slowly, I disappeared. I wasn't invited to dress fittings, not included in decisions. I learned about the rehearsal dinner through social media. When I asked Daniel why, he said, "You wouldn't feel comfortable there anyway." That was when the first crack appeared in my heart. The envelope arrived 2 weeks before the wedding. Inside were photos: Daniel, Margaret, hotel lobbies, private apartments, bank transfers. My son was not just marrying into that family, he was being controlled by it, paid by it, used by it, and worse, Margaret was not just manipulating him, she was planning to cut Isabel out of her own inheritance after the wedding. I vomited that night. I shook. I begged God for this not to be real, but it was. I hired a private investigator. I confirmed everything, recorded conversations, financial trails, legal documents. I could have gone to the police, but if I did, my son would be destroyed, and I wasn't ready for that, so I waited. The wedding happened, and the humiliation happened. And when Margaret threw that soup at me, she believed she had won. She didn't know I had already chosen silence as my weapon. The phone call I made that night wasn't to the police, it was to Isabel's grandfather, a man who believed in truth more than blood. By morning, lawyers were involved. Trust funds were frozen. The marriage was annulled within days. Margaret was charged with fraud and conspiracy. Isabel was placed under her grandfather's protection, and my son, Daniel, lost everything. His job, his reputation, his comfort. He came to my apartment weeks later, thinner, broken, ashamed. "Mom, I didn't know who I became," he said. I looked at him for a long time before answering. Neither did I. I didn't let him stay. That was the hardest thing I've ever done. But love that rescues too early only teaches people how to fall again. 2 years have passed. I still live in the same small apartment. I still drink coffee from the same chipped mug. I still sew for neighbors and church ladies, but I sleep in peace, because I learned something important. Dignity is louder than revenge, truth is stronger than silence, and love sometimes means letting go. If you are listening to this story, tell me something. Which country are you listening from? Because stories like this are not rare, they are everywhere, hidden behind smiles and silence. Thank you for staying until the end. Thank you for listening. God bless.